It's nice to see everybody. I'm going to chant Jai Radha Madhava. I'm very grateful for the opportunity to associate with everybody. It's very nice to be here with you all. So we'll do a little chanting of Jai Radha Madhava, and then I've been asked to speak from the 11th chapter. So I picked the first verse of the 11th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. So we'll do a little bit of chanting first. Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jai Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradari Yashoda Nandana Braja Janaranjana Yashoda Nandana Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradari Yashoda Nandana Braja Janaranjana Yashoda Nandana Jamuna Tira Vanachari Tira Vanachari. So I guess I can pull it up on my end, unless you want to share it from Vedabase. So we're reading today from the 11th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, which is Krishna's universal form, the universal form. Is there anybody that's joining for the first time? Is this the first time they've come to a program? Or okay, we have one person. What's your name?
Preston. Nice to meet you.
Preston?
Yeah. Yes.
Preston, okay, nice to meet you. You look seasoned. You got the book, you have the garland, you have the beads. You look like you were in the zone having a good time with the chanting. You look very peaceful and blissful. That's great. So yeah, we're reading from the 11th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita as it is. So I'll go ahead and just do the Sanskrit, and then we'll skip the synonyms for now. We'll go straight into the translation and purport. How much time do I have, by the way? Just curious. It's 11:46. I don't want to push over on time.
Probably 30 minutes, and then about 10 to 15 minutes of question and answers.
So how much for 30 minutes total, or 20 minutes? What was it?
40 to 45 minutes total.
40 to 45 minutes. Okay. Well, I like to talk sometimes, so we'll see what happens. Thank you. So this 11th chapter, Arjuna Uvacha Mad Anugrahaya Paramam Guyam Atyatma Samgitam Yat Twayoktam Vachastena Mohoyam Vigato Mama. So we'll move past the synonyms for now, and we'll go into the translation. Arjuna said, by hearing the instructions you have kindly given me about these most confidential spiritual subjects, my illusion has now been dispelled. Purport, by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. This chapter reveals Krishna as the cause of all causes. He is even the cause of the Mahavishnu, from whom the material universes emanate. Krishna is not an incarnation. He is the source of all incarnations that has been completely explained in the last chapter. Now, as far as Arjuna is concerned, he says that his illusion is over. This means that Arjuna no longer thinks of Krishna as a mere human being, but as a friend of his, but as the source of everything. Arjuna is very enlightened and is glad that he has such a great friend as Krishna. But now he is thinking that although he may accept Krishna as the source of everything, others may not. So, in order to establish Krishna's divinity for all, he is requesting Krishna in this chapter to show his universal form. Actually, when one sees the universal form of Krishna, one becomes frightened, like Arjuna. But Krishna is so kind that after showing it, he converts himself again into his original form. Arjuna agrees to what Krishna has several times said. Krishna is speaking to him just for his benefit. So Arjuna acknowledges that all this is happening to him by Krishna's grace. He is now convinced that Krishna is the cause of all causes and is present in everyone's heart as the super soul. So again, the verse was Arjuna uvacha mad anugrahaya paramam guyam atyatma samgitam yatvayoktam vachastena mahoyam vigato mama. Arjuna said, by hearing the instructions you have kindly given me about these most confidential spiritual subjects, my illusion has now been dispelled. So I'll say a few prayers before we have a conversation. Om Agyan Timirandasya Ganajanashalakaya Chaksarun Manitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurve Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupagadamayam Dadati Swadatikam Namo Vishnu Badaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimate Guru Prasad Swami Niti Namine Namo Vishnu Badaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Prachardine Nevishesha Shunyavadi Pastitya De Satarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So Preston, are you familiar with the backdrop of the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna and Arjuna?
Yes.
Okay, great, cool. So we understand that there's this big battle that's about to take place, and Krishna's driving this chariot, and Arjuna's in a lot of anxiety at one point, and so he has this 45-minute conversation with Krishna, and Krishna's giving him all these different truths about himself. So, interesting point. Prabhupada, our founding acharya or teacher or guru, on the back of this Bhagavad Gita, you see his picture. There's no recordings of him speaking from the 11th chapter. As I was wondering, I have this really nice book here. It's the complete audio archives, and it comes with the little box. It came out a while ago. And then I looked on ISKCON Desire Tree, and there's nothing from the 11th chapter or even the 14th chapter from what I saw. So that was pretty interesting. But immediately starting out here, just to give some preface, before we give some context of the verse, by my hearing the instructions, Arjuna says, you have kindly given me about these most confidential subjects, the subject matter. So immediately Arjuna is understanding one of the 9 processes of bhakti, devotion to Krishna. And immediately it starts with hearing, shravanam. There's many examples of that throughout the Vedas. There's another set of books called the Srimad Bhagavatam, in which there was a king who renounced his kingdom and family, and he was cursed to die in 7 days. And he spent the remaining of those 7 days hearing about Krishna and his pastimes and hearing ancient text from the Vedas, the Srimad Bhagavatam. So that is a proof of how important it is to hear, right? So there's Shravanam, there's hearing, there's chanting, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam, remembering. So these are three very important aspects of bhakti, of cultivating our love for Krishna. So Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, Srila Prabhupada's teacher, or our founding Acharya's teacher, mentions that giving oral reception to Krishna's names, descriptions of Krishna's form, the Lord's form, qualities, his friends, his companions, and pastimes. After we have oral reception of these things, we should memorize. We should memorize, and then we repeat them. So you have this remembering aspect. So Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam. So we hear, we chant. That's one way to we receive the messages in a powerfully, right? So we should memorize these things by chanting them, speaking about them with devotees, and then we understand them the more that we remember them. So those are the three first aspects of the 9 processes of bhakti. So immediately Arjuna is saying by hearing. Then you have pada sevanam, which is serving the Lord's lotus feet. Deity worship, which is understanding Krishna in this form of a deity. He can come. Why not? Why can we not worship God in the form of stone or wood or earth or as a picture? But this particular deity worship is talking about the Archa Vigraha, Archanam, deity worship. Having an altar, and you'll see in many of our temples, there's deities of Krishna that are made or casted from marble, and it's non-different than Krishna in the deity form. Another way that we can purify our lives and remember is by seeing Krishna in the form of a deity. Then there's Vandanam, which is praying, offering our obeisances or respects, executing orders or instructions, serving as a friend. One way of serving Krishna as a friend is by giving this philosophy and giving this understanding of Bhakti Yoga to others and asking people to love Krishna. That's one way to serve Krishna as a friend. And then there's complete surrender, which is offering one's body, mind, intelligence, and whatever one may possess. There's a leaf blower all of a sudden here right outside my window. So yeah, these are the 9 processes of Bhakti Yoga. And immediately Arjuna is acknowledging that by hearing, he's received now, and his illusion has been dispelled. So catching us up to date, in the 10th chapter, Krishna's giving some information that he's extending past the confidential knowledge of the 9th chapter into the 10th chapter. He's giving further knowledge, where he's speaking about in the beginning of the 10th chapter that he has no origin, he's beginningless, all the different qualities that living beings have, whether they be doubt or forgiveness or truthfulness, both good and bad, are created by him. All planets come from him, right? And so in that 10th chapter, after giving some information, he goes into the Chatur Shloki verses. So this would be 10:8, 10:9, 10:10, and 10:11, which are basically a summary of the Bhagavad Gita. So if you want to understand Krishna, those 4 verses are very important for our advancement, right? So Prabhupada said that these 4 verses are a summary in which we can understand how to surrender to Krishna and what the result is of such surrender. So just giving some further context of how we got here, a refresher, as I guess you could say, how we got to 11.1 before I start getting into a little bit more of the purport. So in these particular verses, Krishna says he's the sources of all spiritual and material worlds. He's saying that those that engage in his service, they worship him with their hearts, which is very profound, right? We worship Krishna with our hearts. So it's not so much mental speculation at all. It's through the heart. It's through that act of love and devotion. Devotees, those that are devoted to Krishna, those who are trying to understand God, we enlighten one another about him. We serve God with love, and he gives us an understanding. Dadami Buddhi Yogam Tam. He gives an understanding by which we can return to him. And then Gyana Dipena Bhashvata. So Krishna, he destroys ignorance with a shining lamp of knowledge. He destroys darkness that comes from ignorance with this shining lamp of knowledge. So after these verses, Arjuna is very enthusiastic. He says, hey, I'm not satisfied. I want to hear about the details of your opulences. And so Krishna goes on to explain some details. He says, okay, I'll give you the ones that are most, I guess, prominent. He says, so Krishna goes on to say, of weapons, I'm the thunderbolt, of purifiers, I'm the wind, I'm the gambling of cheats. But then after Krishna starts getting into these opulences that he has, he closes out that conversation, or he closes out that chapter, and he pulls Arjuna back on track, right? He says, all of these things I've explained to you, all of these energies I've explained to you, they're just a spark of my splendor. So it's really not that big of a deal. Like, I'm Krishna, these are just different energies that I possess, right? Maybe somebody's really good at arithmetic, or maybe somebody's really expert with cooking, or maybe somebody's really expert at racing cars. We can appreciate those things, but what about the person? So he pulls Arjuna's mind back on track to him understanding. And he says, but just a single fragment, I can support the entire manifestation, the entire universe. So Prabhupada says at the end of that 10th chapter, the last verse, that there's really no reason to try and understand all of these opulences that Krishna has, these energies, right? There's no reason to really get into the details and the gist of these items. I was looking at an interview the other day, and it was this famous actress, and she was talking about aging, and I was thinking about Krishna. She was saying aging is such a taboo, and the lady interviewing her was like, why don't you have plastic surgery? Why don't you fix your hair? And this lady, she's an actress. Her name is Helena Bonham Carter, and she came and her hair was just everywhere, and she didn't have makeup on, and she was challenging this woman. And this lady said, well, if aging is such a taboo, what are you going to do about it? She says, well, what am I supposed to do about it? Why is everybody so scared of aging? And she refuses to kind of give into that concept. When you see in so much of our society, right? Like, we want Krishna's energies, we want Krishna's opulences, but do we really want Krishna, right? Some beauty, some fame, some wealth, some intelligence, some strength, some renunciation. I was always wondering about renunciation, because the others are pretty like straightforward. Okay, Krishna is unlimitedly beautiful, famous, wealthy, intelligent, strong. We can understand these things. But the renunciation aspect is that Krishna is completely renounced from material conception and material world. So the only thing he wants is to be connected to his devotees in the spiritual world. So this whole process of understanding Krishna's opulences and the details of them, it's not necessary for bhakti, for love of God, right? It's something very simple. Patram pushpam phalam toyam, the famous verse in the 9th chapter, just offering Krishna a leaf, flower, fruit, or water. So this is kind of just getting us caught up to speed of where we're at now. So Arjuna's just heard all of these things, and now he's seeing Krishna as the cause of all causes. So as far as the 11th chapter, this is kind of a summary of it as well. It says here, Arjuna is very enlightened and is glad that he has such a great friend as Krishna, but now he is thinking that although he may accept Krishna as the source of everything, others may not. So this is when we get into this universal form of Krishna, which is extremely overwhelming for Arjuna, right? So later on in this chapter, it talks about how Arjuna, immediately upon seeing this form, he bows his head and he just offers his respects with pranams, with folded hands, and he starts to pray, which the dynamic of that relationship has now somewhat changed, you could say. So he's seeing this, the manifestation of everything, material and spiritual, which Prabhupada says is impossible. So there's a really intense picture of Krishna in the universal form, displaying all the different energies, and the manifestation of both material and spiritual. Here it is right here. Pretty intense. I don't know if y'all can see it. Very intense. So immediately you see Arjuna there just paying his respects. So we come from a lineage of Madhurya Ras, which is like conjugal love of Krishna. And there's different relationships we can have, but that's not how we're seeing Krishna as devotees. Prabhupada says, like, you can't even, he says in room talks and lectures, he says it's impossible to worship that form of Krishna. There wouldn't be enough material to even dress Krishna if he's exhibiting the entire manifestation of everything. So therefore, by Krishna's mercy, we're able to worship Krishna through the form of a deity, Radha Krishna, or Lord Nityananda and Lord Chaitanya. It's simplified for us. And then within that manifestation of the Virat Rupa, you have material planets that are representing different limbs of Krishna. So it's unlike the form of Krishna, where it's just pure and completely transcendental, or the form of Lord Nrsingadev or Lord Chaitanya, where it's just, there's some sort of material energies that are also being exhibited that can be perceived as material by a person who worships this particular form. So it's a very far out, interesting concept, and it allows us to now also bring our minds back after hearing these things to our natural relationship with Krishna. So Arjuna, again, he goes through this whole drama with Krishna of showing his universal form for our benefit. So this is what we do as devotees. This is the example, is that we ask certain questions, we perform certain activities for the benefits of others, right? So he's showing the superiority of Krishna being the summum bonum of everything. Krishna's everything. So Arjuna's bewildered, he's in wonder. It says that Arjuna was affected by the wonders of Krishna, right? His natural loving friendship was overwhelmed by this awe and reverence and wonder. And therefore he reacted in a certain way during this time when Krishna reveals this universal form. He's shaking, he's scared, so it's the whole dynamic of that relationship was changed. It becomes just overwhelming, right? So, but there's a certain port in the dialogue between Krishna and Arjuna where he just kind of snaps him back to reality too. And he says, prepare to fight and conquer your enemies. Win the battle, enjoy your kingdom, these things like that. Because everything has already happened. All the enemies on the other side of the battlefield have already been slayed. And in this universal form, Arjuna was actually able to see those on the battlefield crushed in the teeth of Krishna in this universal form. He was able to see the results of this battle and him being victorious, because that was his desire. And it's not like he just put on these glasses and was able to see this. Like Krishna gave him the benediction and gave him that vision to see the universal form, right? So yeah, and it's very reminiscent of a verse in the Brahma Samhita, Premanjana Churita Bhakti Vilochanena Shanta Sadeva Hridayeshu Viloka Yanti Yam Shyama Sundaram Achintya Gunaswarupam Govinda Mari Purusham Tamaham Bhajami. So in the Brahma Samhita, I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, Shama Sundar, with inconceivable, innumerable attributes. The pure devotees see in their hearts with the eye of devotion, tinged with the salve of love. So how do we see through the heart, right? So that is what allowed Arjuna to see this form, was the fact that he's taking this role as a disciple, and he's being submissive after hearing. But that's what the devotee does now. They have this different set of lenses that Krishna gives them through the devotion in their hearts, right? So devotees see that form in their purified hearts under the influence of devotional trance. So under the influence, we become intoxicated with serving Krishna, serving the devotees, speaking about Krishna, rather than just some materialistic liquid or something mundane. We become under the influence in a different direction when we understand the two-armed form of Krishna, the Krishna that we know, which is loving, which is a friend, which is our shelter. The Virat Rupa, or the universal form, is something that's inconceivable. Of course, Krishna is inconceivable, but it's a lot, right? Like Prabhupada didn't emphasize this form. He didn't give us this form. That's why I found it very interesting. Like, wow, there's no audio or recordings of Prabhupada speaking from the 11th chapter. I'm sure at one point maybe did. I don't know. I can't say, but I couldn't find anything for reference. So this particular pastime that's happening between Krishna and Arjuna, it allows us to also go back to the essence of who Krishna is, as this two-armed form boy playing his flute, Krishna is visible to that eye in proportion to its purification by the practice of devotion. I wrote this note down. So according to our devotion and our service to Krishna, right? According to our surrender, Krishna gives us that intimacy. He gives us that reciprocation. And so that's the beauty of this two-armed form and personal God, is that we have this personal relationship. And that's our constitutional position, right? So when we're able to see Yomam Pasyati Sarvatra, Sarvam Chamani Pasyati, Tasyaham na pranasyami sachame na pranasati. When we're able to see everything, and when we're able to see Krishna everywhere and in everything, we're never lost. And that is the key to helping us deepen this relationship with Krishna on a personal level, is that we're able to go to the grocery store, we're able to teach students, we're able to do kirtan, right? Of course, these devotional activities. We're able to spiritualize everything, whether we work, whether we raise children, whether we have parents that we're taking care of, or whatever it may be. We're seeing Krishna everywhere and in everything. And that's the trick to anointing our eyes with that pulp of devotion and love that's explained in the Brahma Samhita. So it's an intense part of the Bhagavad Gita. So much so that you have a warrior like Arjuna who's freaking out and he's shaking when he sees this amazing form of Krishna. So later on in the purport, the last few sentences of the purport are what really took to me. Arjuna agrees to what Krishna has several times said. Krishna is speaking to him for his benefit. So Arjuna acknowledges that all this is happening to him by Krishna's grace. He is now convinced that Krishna is the cause of all causes and is present in everyone's heart as the super soul. So there's some context of what led up to this moment and a general summary of what's going to happen in the 11th chapter. Now we have somewhat of an understanding of this amazing universal form where you can see everything in Krishna. But how do we make this practical, right? So it's very interesting that Prabhupada says here that all of this is happening to him by Krishna's grace. That is so key to keeping our satisfaction, to keeping our enthusiasm, to keeping our determination, is by seeing that everything that's happening to us on a day-to-day basis, on a minute-to-minute, second-to-second basis, it's all Krishna's arrangement, right? I was speaking with my guru briefly last week, and he said, make a plan, accept the challenges, and be determined, right? And it was so simple, but so profound. I thought, like, well, make a plan, accept that there will be difficulties, and stay determined on the course. And I thought, that can happen if I see that it's always a part of Krishna's arrangement. My reverses, my successes, The other day we had a college meeting. We have college meetings on Tuesday, and we have students that attend our college meetings. And I've been on this whole forgiveness tour. Like I've got my list of people that have wronged me or hurt me. It's not a very big list, but it's a list. I think we all have a list, right? And these things can be impediments on our bhakti. And so a couple of things I want to share on how I can implement this teaching by Prabhupada today. Seeing Krishna's arrangement in hand and everything. So Arjuna was able to see this. So I went to this Tuesday morning. I went to I guess you could say interfaith, but they called all these different faith communities to address domestic violence in the city of San Antonio. So my friend runs an organization, and I went out there. Long story short, they had a woman speaking about domestic violence, and this really touched my heart. I've been meditating on it all week. And her daughter was brutally shot and killed by her boyfriend in front of her while she was holding her grandchildren. Super intense, right? And the woman was really trying to hold it together. But she was explaining to us why it's so important to address all these different forms of abuse, not just physical, but emotional, coercive, all these different ones, different forms of abuse, mental abuse. And she said, if that man was standing right next to me right now, I would feel uncomfortable, but I've forgiven him. And I thought, like, wow, like it's hard for me to forgive somebody when, they cut me off in traffic, or, when they short my change or whatever, what to speak of other devotees or other friends and family that have hurt me or done something against me. And I thought, like, wow, if you have this woman that had her daughter literally shot and killed in front of her, and she's able to forgive that man. She was sincere. You could see it. She had just come to that place. And she realized, she even said that the forgiveness was for me. I didn't want to carry around that anguish and that hurt and that pain to my other grandchildren and to my other children, So her daughter was killed by this man. And I meditated on this. And it's funny how Krishna arranged this for me to hear. Right? Like I had been discussing with those other devotees. I was just calling up random devotees. Devotees, we all like to talk a lot about Krishna and just talk in general. So whenever I have a question, I'll ask one of my friends. And I just called one of my friends up, and I called a couple of friends up. I said, hey, what do you think about forgiveness? And it turned into an 1.5 hour long conversation. And it was just like nectar. It was nice hearing these other realizations. So when I'm struggling with something, I just, if it's a very complex issue, I narrow it down. Well, what is the issue here? It's forgiveness, right? And so I was able to call a few devotees, and I've realized that like this is a huge impediment on my path to Krishna giving me more facility, and also me allowing to see Krishna more clearly is by forgiving. Maybe this person that came in and hurt my feelings or hurt me or did whatever, that's all Krishna's arrangement too. We have a tendency to just look and say like, oh, well, this is beautiful and this person's doing everything I would like them to do, so we have a great relationship, right? Or this person's teaching me in the way I like to be taught. But our biggest teachers are the ones that cause us the most difficulty sometimes. So we have to also see that as Krishna teaching us a lesson. And we have to pay attention to that. And we can do the same thing Arjuna did. We can immediately pray, we can shake, we can be scared, we can be whatever we are, but we have to take shelter of Krishna in that form of a teacher as well, just as he did with this very intense form. So I spoke to a few friends, and my conclusion was that I'm still working towards that conclusion. It's an everyday practice, to get rid of these anartas, these unwanted feelings on whatever level or scope that we may have them in. And they get more refined as we go deeper into the stages of Bhakti Yoga. So we always have an option to go in. Otherwise, we can keep chanting our rounds. Maybe it's a little mechanical, or maybe we think everything is okay, but we have to address these things. Even if we can't, let's say on the topic of forgiveness, if we can't address those painstaking relationships with those people or that person face to face, we still have to address it within ourselves. And we have to come to a place of forgiving, because there's so many people that have forgiven us for our difficulties and what we've caused to them. So we have to forgive ourselves, and we have to tolerate, right? I was just reading a nice quote about Prabhupada saying that, as devotees of God, being devoted to God, like we want to go out and we want to share this with others. And there's so many different impediments that will come in the way of that, but we have to be determined. So my reflection on this purport is understanding that everything's happening by Krishna's grace. And then, so that was the morning. And then that Tuesday evening, we had a talk at the university a few days ago. And there was one student that basically started some confrontation with the Bhagavad Gita last semester, or about a year ago, in the spring semester last year. And I gave a little presentation on Bhagavad Gita, and there was friction. There was a lot of resistance, and it blew up. Like, it was the only time we had one meeting where just kind of like the communication wasn't there between her and I as presenter. She had some strong doubts and misgivings. Maybe she felt it was too religious or too spiritual. I don't know. But for some reason or another, there was a blockage of hearts. And I was dumbfounded. I was like, wow, this is the last meeting of the semester. How'd this happen? And sure enough, we didn't see her in the fall. And then she came back on Tuesday and sat in the exact same chair. And I was a little bit nervous. I said, oh my God. All right. Because I give this presentation once a semester. And I said, I don't want this to happen again. But I'm not gonna tread on eggshells or walk on eggshells either. I was speaking about the mind, nothing too difficult or too controversial. And I could sense a little bit of tenseness, because here I am giving a PowerPoint once a semester, and then she showed up, and it's in the exact same room. She's sitting in the exact same seat. I'm sitting in the exact same seat. And so there's a trigger. And I started sharing. Krishna was allowing me to share this situation that took place in the morning with the woman, and hearing about forgiveness, right? And so it just tied in and it flowed so nicely. And the student was pacified. She was accepting. I was accepting, that tension, it just dissipated. And I saw how Krishna was arranging all of these things. And by the end of the talk, we were speaking about forgiveness and boundaries and how the mind, one of the examples I gave was, here you have this woman who was totally hurt and her daughter was killed in front of her. And she was able to understand in her mind how this pain could affect her. And here you have this man who should be showing the utmost love for his companion, but instead he's showing the opposite. His mind's leading him to hell, and he kills this woman. So you have these two minds that are allowing certain emotions to come out. So that's how I kind of tied it in. So long story short, we wrap up, everything's cool, and then we do kirtan, and something amazing happened, but also shocking. We're doing this kirtan, and we're kind of getting into it, and I was thinking, okay, everybody seems all right. And then this girl burst into the room and she says, y'all need to get out of here right now. I reserved this room and you're on my time. And we were just looking like, and I said, okay, just give us 2 minutes. We'll wrap up. And she basically, she was implying like, now get out of your chair and get out of here. And I thought, I've never been through this in my life, but I just played it off cool. And then, so we were wrapping up, and I was thinking, like, why did Krishna allow this to happen? Like, why did he allow this very ugly thing to happen? We were supposed to have that room till 7:30, and this girl came in and she just ruined it, but I just stayed calm. And then I was reflecting, and then I saw the other girl come up, and, we connected, the one that had the issue before, and she appreciated it. We gave food out to everybody, and she was saying thank you for the talk and all that stuff. So we got to connect. But I learned, my reflection is to turn that negative situation. And what I realized happened is that Krishna allowed us all to be unified in that room. He allowed myself and that particular student that had some miscommunication to become more unified by being blasted by this third party. And that was the cliche silver lining, so to speak. And I felt like it deepened the relationship. Hey, we're on the same team now. We're both getting attacked. And so point in hand is that when we're given these obstacles, right, when we're given these difficulties, that's for our benefit. So yes, Krishna is speaking to Arjuna for his benefit, and he's showing him his universal form, and he's showing him at the end of this chapter his regular two-arm form, not regular, but he's showing him the form that Arjuna wants to see, four-arm form, two-arm form. And how I apply that lesson is to say, like, yes, there's the beauty where even the Bhagavatam, Prabhupada says that Krishna doesn't need our potatoes. He doesn't need our paneer. He doesn't need our mango juice. He doesn't need our sweets, right? Krishna doesn't need he doesn't need our talents. He needs our love. He's simply arranging all of these activities to take place for our benefit, very similar to Arjuna. So Arjuna needed this in order to really go out there and fight, especially in that 33rd verse. Krishna just gives him such a warrior pep talk, go out there and get it done. You're going to be victorious, and everybody's already defeated anyways. I've already done that for you. Be an instrument, Krishna says, be an instrument. So to the degree that we're surrendered, such as Arjuna was, is to the degree that we can become instruments in Krishna consciousness. That's really what we're trying to do. We're trying to become these instruments for Krishna to utilize properly in this movement. And the more that we surrender ourselves to those moments, I mean, you're chanting and everything's blissful and it's sweet and it's like heaven, and then all of a sudden someone just opens up the door and screams at you. It's like, that's the test, It's not like I'm gonna, okay, in 30 minutes somebody's gonna come up in my kirtan and just slam their foot down. No, there's no heads up. So by being completely surrendered and being completely tolerant and compassionate and studying these scriptures, but also seeing the lesson. How can I apply these things? How can I apply this if I'm struggling with forgiveness or resentment or forgetfulness or whatever it may be? How can I apply this lesson in my life? Then we're looking at it with the right perspective, and we can become instruments for Krishna's grace, so that way maybe we may be able to help others. So Krishna's present in everyone's heart as the super soul, guiding, arranging, allowing things to take place. And we have to purify ourselves in such a way that we can hear Krishna speaking to us. We become more in tune with Paramatma as the years go on, and especially with experiences that we have, we're able to gain more practical realization and knowledge and how we present this to others and how we give it to others in a palatable way. Yesterday we had a cooking class. We had about 13 or 14 people. We went to this nice property. It's kind of like a farm or a gardening place, I guess you could say. And we cooked some vegetable stew and rice for everybody. And we just made friends. We just sat down and we just talked, and that it was prasadam. It was blessed food. And we didn't get into too much philosophy. We said, this is the program. This is where we're at, right? There's other times where we can go in a little deeper. So we have to be able to understand according to time, place, and circumstance as well, all of these different lessons and how to make them applicable. Obviously, if somebody would have came in with a weapon during that kirtan, I would have reacted differently. Or if somebody would have threatened us, I would have reacted differently. So according to time, place, and circumstance, Krishna will give that intelligence if we're surrendered to it. He'll give that vision. He'll give that understanding by which we can serve him more clearly. So I'll go ahead and I'll stop there. If anybody has any reflections or comments, please share. Probably thank you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Prabhu, I am to understand what we know Krishna's opulences, but then he showed his universal form. Is it showing that Krishna going extreme if necessary? Is that the purpose?
What was that again? I'm sorry.
I'm saying that we know all about the Krishna's opulences.
Mm-hmm.
And then again he's showing his universal form.
Mm-hmm.
That means if necessary, what Krishna can do. That we know Krishna has all the power.
Yes. Yeah.
So my question is that, is it a way of teaching others through Arjuna that if necessary, Krishna has other part of it. One side, he's excellent, all the opulences, love, etc., etc., one extreme, that he can do everything whatever he wants to do and destroy the things. Is that a part of teaching that he wanted to give to everybody through Arjuna?
Yeah. I mean, it says it right here in the purport that where does it say? Yeah, right here. He's thinking that although he may accept Krishna as a source of everything, others may not. So in order to establish Krishna's divinity for all, he is requesting Krishna in this chapter to show his universal form. So there's a few things, like Prabhupada talks about the Virat Rupa. That it could be a gradual process for some, right? He says it's for neophytes, for less intelligent people. Like maybe they see God in nature, or maybe they see God in some sort of inanimate object, right? So, but they'll refuse to see Krishna as a cowherd boy playing a flute. So there's a note I had somewhere on this. Let me see if I can find it. Those who are too engrossed in sense gratification cannot be allowed to participate in archana, worshiping Krishna in his form, or to touch the transcendental form of Radha Krishna or Vishnu deities. For them, it is better to meditate upon the gigantic Virat Rupa of the Lord as recommended. The personalists and voidists are therefore recommended to meditate upon this universal form of the Lord, whereas the devotees are recommended to meditate on the deity worship in the temple, because the impersonalists and the voidists are not sufficiently purified in their spiritual activities. Archana is not meant for them. So there's something for everyone. Arjuna's playing this role. Krishna's playing this role. This form is being shown. It's being discussed for the benefit of those who are not ready to see Krishna as a person, right? And be personal with them, but to understand that at least there's a source of everything. There's the Brahman concept, right? Like, but still there's the Bhagavan. There's Krishna as a person who's the source of all that. And that's for us. So there's something for everyone, but Arjuna is asking for this universal form for the benefit of us, and Krishna is revealing it for the benefit of him. If that answers the question.
Yes. Thank you, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. Does anybody else have anything they'd like to share? Any reflection?
I thought it was great.
Okay, Preston. Yeah. What did you like? What did you like about the verse and translation? What stuck out to you?
So basically, I really liked you wrapping in your personal experience. I think that's very true. I mean, how many times in my life have I been like, why is this happening, Krishna? And then after I'm like, oh, of course it couldn't have happened any other way, in a better way.
Mm-hmm.
And, learning lessons through strife sometimes. You ask a great question, because I've always wondered about this universal form. I actually have that photo in my meditation room. So it's really cool to look at. You see the teeth, you see the crowns, you see, all these other different aspects. And I come from a background where I've tried pretty much all other types of meditation and found them lacking or wanting. And I've always kind of wondered why the non-dualists are always like, there's no God, and it never felt whole to me. So this has just been the nectar of my life, honestly, because I'm like, I knew it. I had a feeling. I really, it was going against my true self to say, all there is Brahman, and I was like, but anyway, the point, I won't talk about myself too long, but I really appreciate you wrapping that in about the universal form, because I never really thought about that and how people receive Krishna. And it just is really, an honor is a understatement for being able to know Krishna in such a personal way. It makes me cry every day. So I'm very blessed that, you're here and wrapped in your own personal life. And yeah, man, I know exactly what you mean. I couldn't have learned better through beneficial aspects of my life, but I learned really well through some really hard times, and seeing how Krishna was actually the thread between all those times. So I just appreciate you so much.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, there's a lot there. There's something I heard earlier today, was that spiritual anxiety means that we're advancing in spiritual life. Material anxiety means that we're going downhill. So we have to sometimes, there's this tendency, at least I know I have a little bit of a tendency. Maybe it's Krishna playing a game, I don't know, where you kind of go out a little bit past your means for Krishna. You just do a little bit of extra, so that way you're not just complacent and comfortable. And that little space in between our bodily comfort and the unknown is where all the adventure happens in Krishna consciousness, right? So if we're introverted by nature, maybe we can try to approach one person a day. Or if we're trying to learn how to cook, maybe we should commit to cooking one meal for everybody a month, whatever it may be, right? You just try to go out of our comfort zone a little bit each day the anxiety, I try to remind myself, anxiety and stress is not going anywhere. That's going to be there regardless. So I might as well just spiritualize it. And those difficult times, I put them on Krishna's shoulder. Well, Krishna's doing this to me, of course I have to be responsible, and I have to be accountable, and I have to see my part of the deal as well. But yeah, that was a really nice reflection. It's like those difficult times are opportunities. Those difficult relationships are opportunities to become more humble and tolerant. And the devotee, ultimately, we have no desire. We have no self-desire, right? We have, Lord Chaitanya says, Nadanam, Najanam, Nasundaram, Kavitam Bhajagadisha Kamaye, Mama Jamani Jamani Ishvare, Bhavatad Bhaktira, Hetuki Twayi. Hetuki Twayi. We don't have any personal motives. We just want to be in devotional life, devotional service, life after life. We don't want fame, adoration, distinction. We don't want any of these things. So in the 4th verse of the Shikshashtaka, Lord Chaitanya explains this. So we take that mood of, hey, I don't want any personal motive. I want to see others. I want to give to others. So that's the beauty of Krishna consciousness, is like, yeah, we get all this, but then we give it out, and then we get more, and then we try to give out more, right? So yeah, thank you for that reflection. That's really sweet.
Thank you.
I think we're a little bit over time, so I'm going to go ahead and end here. But thank you all so much for having me. I have to get going. We have our program coming up in about 45 minutes. So I appreciate everybody. Thank you so much for your time, and we will catch up next time. All the best. Please keep chanting and associating. It's so important to come together and also to be of some service. Can I bring some vegetables to the next meeting or group gathering, or can I cut up some vegetables? What can I do to enhance my bhakti and my devotion, and be a member of a striving community that's wanting to give this to others? Because it's the highest benefit for mankind, is to give them this sort of information and love, and make it practical in such a way that we can do these things in our day-to-day life. So all of these things are necessary: association, chanting, and being part of a community by doing service together and deepening those relationships, having those real talks, and being personal with one another. So thank you again for everything. Hare Krishna. I'll be signing off now. Thank you so much. I'll have a good evening or good afternoon or good program. Hare Krishna. Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu, Dandavat Pranam. Actually, we are so grateful of your presence. And I like to thank all the devotees for joining in Batandoj area. So, by your support, we are continuing this program. And Prabhu gave wonderful class. And I'm requesting Prabhu, actually this is his 2nd class in our Zoom. So Prabhu also running program like us, but he's doing bigger way. So we are so happy to see you and your blessings. So come sometimes when you get time, so we can get a lot of encouragement from you and your wife. So Mancha Galvatara Vacha Kripa Sindhu Vacha Patitanam Kaunabha Vaishnava Hari Val.
Thank you so much. And please, in the future, come visit us. We're doing, like you said, we're doing a similar program, and we appreciate if y'all ever are in the area in San Antonio or want to come, you're more than welcome. Our house is your house. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much.
Hare Krishna.
Yeah, Prabhu, since Prabhu left, but I like to share within minute one quick story. Like Prabhu is telling about the forgiveness. So if we see biography of Srila Prabhupada, how much he carried Krishna with him. He was thinking everything is coming from Krishna. Like he sacrificed his life, he gave his whole life. He could stay in Vrindavan prestigiously. He was a very honorable person in Vrindavan, a scholar, sadhu, but he gave up all his comfort and he came USA to give this Krishna consciousness to the human society, to degraded people. And every steps he actually faced a lot of severe, like problems. Nobody was helping him. Besides, sometimes actually people are harming also, but he accepted as a blessings of Krishna. So recently I heard from Kadamurkanan Maharaj, Prabhupada disciple, when he was taking care of Vrindavan temple, somebody, shot him like 3 times. I'm talking 1995, and 2 actually, the bullet. Now 1 bullet actually passed through his body, and 2 bullets actually injured his whole body. So he almost about to die, But once Maharaj gave interview, Maharaj told, smiling, and he was telling, I forgive him. Can you believe? And actually, last December, actually, I met with Maharaj, therefore, actually, I brought this point. But with little things, somebody, chasing us, somebody telling some bitter word, we never forget. Sometimes people will see the killing. What is benefit for, carrying this kind of bad things in our mind, our body, the harming actually. But if we advance in Krishna consciousness, if we practice, if we chant, if we accept prasadam, if we get that association, if we read Bhagavad books, then this mode can be developed in our mind, and we can have that forgiveness mode. So personally, actually, I met with Maharaj last December, and Maharaj blessed me, and I told Maharaj, please give your feet on my head. Maharaj, oh, no. Maharaj, I never had this example. Here, somebody showed, and you forgive him. How it possible? It is a great example linked with Prabhupada mode. That actually I shared with you. So once we advance in devotional life and we practice more, then forgiveness will come, and we will see his mercy, his blessings, and we can get his association. So thank you so much again. We'll talk more next week. So please join, and we'll do a little arati. And happy Krishna consciousness life. Thank you so much, everyone. Oh yeah. Please. Actually, today's feast is being sponsored by Krishna.
Very happy that he's with us, and he's very inspiring for all of us because he's taking to Krishna consciousness with so much of enthusiasm. So we'll pray for Preston and his well-being so he can advance in Krishna consciousness and continue to inspire us. So let's chant Hare Krishna Mahamantra. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama,